After understanding the classification of matter based on um, the state, that's the physical form, I think we are ready to actually look at the other type of classification of matter. So this is another category of looking at matter, right, and classifying them. That's the composition, what they contain. Based on what they contain, we can actually group matter into different groups, right? But before we start that, we need to actually look at the previous assignment and then see the suggested solution that we have. So the previous assignment was this one. You are asked to be part of a team that will build a system that handle temperature regulation in food containers. If you are to consider the physical state of the device the team intends to do, what would be your suggestion and why? The project is not to do new food containers, but to improve and integrate the system with current ones. So the idea behind this is just basically about the liquid state, right? Where the liquid state can take different forms based on the container they contain, right? So if you build a system that is liquid state, and then people have different food containers, so you can use the idea of liquid being a state of matter that can adapt in various bottles or containers. Then it's suitable to build a system considering the physical state, that's the liquid state, in order to build a system. Basically, that's what we're trying to test if you really understand how the best choice in tackling an issue like this and the reason why you think so. Okay, so that was about the previous session. Let's look at this session and then see what we have currently. So we are talking about the composition of matter, right? Know more about the state, but then what is inside. Remember in the previous session, we also mentioned that um, matter contains particles, and the particles are either atoms, molecules, or ions, right? Okay, so those are the basic building blocks of matter that come up to bring us stuff. By every time, every matter that we have, they 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 come on their own, or they come in a mixture form, right? So, for example, I have this bottle of water, and then this is a bottle of water, then the bottle itself, and then there's liquid inside, right? The liquid inside is another matter, and there's this rubber on it, is also another type of matter. I will combine them to have all this together, right? So this one has a different components, right? Based on the components, you want to be able to classify matter. So if you have matter, let's say here we have matter here. There are two major groups of classification that you can put matter into. So you can put matter as matter can be a mixture, or matter can be pure substance, pure substance. I guess this particular name will actually self-explanatory in the sense that for mixtures, you see the matter coming different things coming together to form the substance. But for matter substance that are pure, they don't come in mixtures, right? They come in their pure form, as the name suggests, right? You don't see them in mixtures. But then, how do we actually understand this? For mixtures, the things that come together to form them, we say multiple things come together to form them, right? So multiple groups of matter come together to form the matter. So if you take the matter, you can be able to see different sub components of matter inside. But then, the issue the fact that they contain different things doesn't mean that they are necessarily mixture. But then the issue is by what way are they formed, right? In what proportion are they formed? If they are combined in indefinite ratio or indefinite proportion, then it's actually a mixture. So for mixture, you have different for mixture, if it's a matter, it's a mixture, right? It contains different matter coming together to form that whole matter. Okay. Now that's not enough to classify it as mixture, but we have to look at, hey, okay, they come together to form this matter, but in what proportion? Is the proportion definite or the proportion indefinite, or constant proportion, or non-constant proportion? If the proportion is constant throughout, then it's constant throughout. It's not a mixture. But if it is indefinite, like mixed, then it is then a mixture. So we mix them like that in any proportion, in indefinite proportion, then that's it, right? Okay. That's about mixtures. And then mixtures, the mixture that can happen in two ways. The mixture can be done homogeneously. It can be a homogeneous mixture. Homogeneous means that, and let me write heterogeneous as well. Heterogeneous, heterogeneous mixture. Homogeneous means that um the things mix in such a way that they, when you are looking at them, they seem as if they are all one. They come together, mix in such a way that they blend in such a way that they look like one thing. Okay. Now, for example, if you have water and you pour sugar inside, after you stir for some time, unless you taste it before you can see that there's sugar inside this. But then for this one, for example, is water. You can't easily tell if I have sugar inside or not. You can't easily tell unless you taste it, right? So water and sugar, right? Water is a different matter, which sugar is a different matter. I mix them together and stir them. They form as if you will look at it from far, you will see as if it's one, right? You will not be able to distinguish between the different particles that form it. That's a homogeneous mixture. Heterogeneous mixture, just like you have water and you pour sand inside, or you pour stone inside the water. You can easily see the stone here and we see the water inside. They don't mix to form one thing, right? That's heterogeneous. Homo means same, and hetero means different, right? Hetero just means different, but this one means same, so they are equal. So equal, proportion, same, and then different, heterogeneous mixture. Now, what about pure substances? For pure substances, um, there are two. There are two types of pure substances. They are elements, and then they are compounds. Okay, so let me talk about elements first. For elements, right? For elements, these are the substances. These are the substances that are truly, truly pure on their own. Nothing mixes with them. They don't mix at all. So, for example, of element, we have carbon elements. We have carbon. You can see them as graphite. In graphite, right? That thing in batteries. That you have the small battery, that's touch battery, right? There's a small thing inside graphite. That's pure carbon. That's carbon. Diamond on its own is just carbon, right? Those are elements. They are pure on their own. Nothing mixes with them. They are oxygen, hydrogen. All those elements are pure on their own. So they are elements. Nothing mixes with them. But what about compounds? Compound is where we have these elements that we talk about right now. And not only standing on their own, but they come together. They come together to mix. Listen, they come together to mix. When they come together to mix, they don't do that in just anyhow. They do that in a definite proportion. They do that in a definite ratio, right? That's what distinguishes them from mixture. So you may think compounds are just like mixtures, but compounds is a combination of two or more elements, right? And when these two elements are combining, you don't just combine anyhow, but you combine them in definite ratio, in a definite proportion, in a constant proportion, right? Yes. But if it's mixtures, right, you put the substances together, but then the mixture, you don't care about whether it's going to be definite or indefinite. It's mostly done in indefinite proportion. Another way of seeing it is that for mixtures, right, you can use physical processes to separate the substances. In terms of separation, you can use physical processes to separate the substances, right? So, for example, of physical processes are filtration. So we have filtration, sublimation, all those normal processes that we use, that we can use physical process to separate. For pure substances, you cannot use physical process to separate them, but then you are more likely to use chemical processes to do that. So next video, we'll be talking about physical property and chemical property for you to actually relate to this particular understanding. But basically, we just mean that you have to understand the basic classification of matter based on the composition. So they may come as mixtures and they may come as pure substance, right? Mixtures and pure substance. Yeah. So the assignment for this particular one will be given to you in the next video, at the beginning of the next video, so that you can look at it and then try to solve it before we continue with the next video. So basically understand that mixtures, right? Substances that combine in indefinite ratio, and they may be homogeneous and heterogeneous. But pure substances, they are on their own, right? Pure substances, they are purely on their own. So elements and compounds. Compounds is a combination of elements but in a definite ratio, but mixtures is a combination of elements in indefinite proportion. One difference between mixture and compound is that the proportion thing that we talk about. For elements, they are purely themselves. They are purely the oxygen, hydrogen, carbon. Yes, yes. That's about elements. And this is the basic classification of matter based on what they contain. Remember, we'll be using this moving forward mostly, and it's good that we take our time and understand this small, basic, and simple classification of matter. See in the next session where we want to understand physical properties and chemical property to actually relate to whatever we are learning so far.